Welcome to the Well Workplaces podcast, where we have authentic conversations with health and wellbeing leaders that are on a mission to inspire healthy change in the workplace. I'm your host, Tom Bosner, and today's episode is proudly brought to you by Pinnacle Health Group, Australia's leading corporate wellbeing provider, who are on a mission to deliver 5 million health experiences globally. And I'm joined today by special guest, Shlomo Silber. A little bit about Shlomo before we get into it. Shlomo is the co-founder and CEO of Bond Collective. He's an entrepreneur at heart, obviously, and his vast experience in the real estate and development sector led him to found the company Bond Collective in 2012. And with over 14 co-working and event locations across the US, Bond Collective has made its mark on the industry by focusing on hospitality and design, but also focusing on thoughtfully curated boutique work environments that provide unmatched experience. And whilst Shlomo is the visionary behind Bond, he's still very much involved in the Bond community and can often be found catching up with the members. And he currently lives in New Jersey with his wife and 4 sons, so he's a busy guy. And when he's not working and spending time with family, he's often found on the jiu-jitsu mats or in the CrossFit gym. Shlomo, welcome.
Hey, thanks for having me.
Thanks for joining me at a weird hour. It's sort of close to 9 o'clock on your end, so really appreciate your time and really excited to talk to you about co-working. But probably more importantly, I'm really interested in learning a lot about you and your journey with your business, because you've obviously been through some exciting times and probably more recently through the pandemic, some challenging times as well. So it'd be really cool to, I guess, unpack that and discuss a little bit further. But maybe before we get into talking about the Bond Collective and yourself, I'm really interested in your perspective on what makes like an amazing co-working space in your view, given this is your bread and butter.
Sure. So, it's really funny. We take like this really interesting approach, which was actually like the whole way that, our business came to be, right? Because we were essentially came into the shared workspace business because we were looking for office space ourselves. And the concept always is we want to create spaces that we want to hang out in. And so, it doesn't mean that all co-working space is the same. So like certain spaces in Brooklyn and, that's really focused on film and media in that area will have like a much more different type of look, vibe, and feel, everything down to like what's on tap there, to our spaces in the city or a space in another city that has, a meditation room or a podcast booth or something along those lines. So what's interesting is we know we did our job right is when we go to see a space right when we finish it and we're like, oh, we want to live here. And that's what we know when we're done in that area and we're ready to open up.
Yeah, I love that. It's you've done like it's 14 now, isn't it, across the states? Would it be fair to say that each one and each location has it? You mentioned it has its own vibe. There's probably a fair bit of work goes into what kind of space that area really deserves or wants. Tell us a little bit about that.
Sure. I mean, so we do all our design in-house, and we're super passionate about it. My background, as well as my co-founder's background, is in construction and real estate. So, and the way we got into it is, we love building things, we love creating things. We kind of wanted to do it for ourselves, and we needed office space, and so we just kind of like hit the trifecta of what we want to do with our spaces. And we, built this design team of like these really, really passionate designers, and they, come into a space and we try to figure out, what we've gotten good at these days. And what's really exciting to us is finding like whether it's a historic core building or something that has like really, really good bones, and bringing that back to life and then making it like an awesome space to get work done in, to, bring clients into, or to even just like hang out and socialize in. And that's really something that we've been like super passionate about and we totally geek out over. So, when we're, I'm walking by a building and we see it, and, if it's just like this kind of boring Class A office building, I don't really care that much. But like you show me a building that's from like, built in the, the 1800s, late 1800s, and used to be an old, like our building in in LA that we actually opened up. It was an old Desmond department store building. So like really, really cool, like old, like columns that had tons of work that needs to be restored on them. And just kind of bringing that building back to life was like a really, really fun, interesting project for us to do.
Yeah, that's awesome. And I think as well, like there's nothing worse when you do go into an office and it does feel boring. It's like fluoro lights, you're in a crappy desk and there's just not that vibrancy around, or that feeling like, because there is a certain feeling when you go into a beautiful space, it makes you want to, it energizes you, it gives you motivation. And I guess with co-working as well, it's no doubt there's been a bigger focus and a post COVID, I guess, or post pandemic. We've been talking a little bit about post traumatic growth, Shlomo, lately, which is that idea of, you know, going through a bit of a struggle and coming out and growing as humans, but also growing within our businesses as well. And I imagine with your business, there'd be currently this maybe two customers, and please interject if I'm talking out of turn here, but would it be fair to say that there's the individuals that are starting up something, or they're in a startup mode with their own business, and then there's the SME who maybe used to go and find that traditional office space, and now they're downsizing and they're kind of setting themselves up for a more flexible style of work? Is that fair? Is it really those two kinds of customers?
Yeah, I mean that's pretty accurate. But what's interesting now is I think this was happening before COVID, and now after COVID, it really accelerated this concept of the idea that anybody could really work from anywhere these days. And so the concept where it used to be that everybody has to go to one centralized office and work out of that place, and that's where they interact, like that doesn't really, you know, exist anymore in a true sense. Whereas especially during COVID, it was essentially anybody that would kind of pushed away from it before COVID had this giant global social experiment where we all had to work on Zoom, and we all had to learn to work remotely, and we all had to learn to be productive from our homes. And so now comes the shared workspace, and you see, you know, a Fortune 500 company, and that company now is giving them a stipend to go ahead and work out of a shared workspace, or the option to work from home, down all the way down to the, you know, freelancer that has their own business that just takes, you know, odd jobs here and there, depending on, you know, how they want to work. And what's really interesting is that co-working now is exactly what you were saying before. It's people need a reason to come out of their homes, right? If they're going back to a boring office, if they're going to a space that doesn't like have a vibe to it, that doesn't like give them like this sort of sense of passion or want to have creativity, they see no reason to leave their house. They'll just stay, you know, sit by their dining room table or on their couch and work away. But if they know that they can go to a space and there's other like-minded people there, and there's an energy in the room, and it's really comfortable, and there's a gym down the block, and there's, you know, some good eats from, you know, that they could pick up, they're going to want to get out of their house and they're going to want to go work somewhere. And that's whether they work for themselves, whether they work for a 10-person company, or whether they work for a 5,000 person company, and they could, you know, kind of, you know, work hybrid sort of, you know, or semi-remote instead of having to always go into the main office.
Yeah, that's very accurate, isn't it? And for context, Shlomo, I'm in my backyard and I'm in this little cabin style thing, this makeshift office. It sounds awesome, but I did do it for this podcast I've been doing from here for 2 years, and I am completely sick of being here because I was working from home for so long due to lockdowns here in Melbourne, and so there's nothing better for me than actually changing this environment. And so I literally just do this here, and then I need to get out. You should see me after I do one of these chats on KGAs, and I need to get out into a really nice space. So it's cool to be learning a little bit about that today.
Yeah, well, we have podcasting booths for you, so you know, come on down. It's a little bit of a drive. I don't know, you know, but I got you. I'll give you a day pass.
Oh, I love it, mate. Yeah, I do need to visit, and still haven't I still haven't traveled overseas yet, but definitely on the cards to get to the States and New York especially. With your business story, Shlomo, it's pretty remarkable growth, really. Like over the 14 locations in let me look, that's 10 years, isn't it? So 14 in 10 or more. How, like, tell us about the journey for you and how I know you're physically, you're active with your well-being, jiu-jitsu, CrossFit, those types of things. Tell us about how you've grown this, but also kept your, I'll say, sanity and balance. I'm sure it hasn't been perfect, by the way, with your 4 sons, but
Yeah, well, I definitely always like to keep busy. I would say like when I was a kid, I was diagnosed with ADHD. I was the one running around the classroom. So it was funny. I was never really like that sort of book smart kid that just like sat in class. It was way more that I learned with like my hands and interacting and dealing with people. And so like it's really interesting, like the trajectory, because like I knew I wanted to be in like the construction and real estate business because of that, and because I always wanted to be on the move, and I never saw myself sitting at a desk. And then the idea of shared workspace, which is, we're in business right under 10 years. Next year will be 10 years for us, and I had this construction experience. We had this sort of like, working for a developer and a little bit of real estate experience. And I was looking for an office and kind of stumbled upon the concept of co-working. And it was really one of those like aha moments, right? Where I was like, this is unbelievable. And I could be doing it just as good, if not better than these guys are doing it. And so once we started that, like it always kept me like really busy, just like learning more about the industry, learning more about, when like how to build space and what people like. And honestly, just listening to our members in our spaces, telling us what they want in a space and why they came to us over a different space. And that really kind of shaped what we were as a business. And then as far as myself goes, is like there's these things of like keeping busy, whether it's exercise, health and wellness, meditation, eating clean, like all those things I feel kind of go hand in hand. I know if I'm not doing one of those, then my business, me being a leader in my business, me being a husband, me being a father is gonna be lacking somewhere, and I'm gonna see that, and I see it play out. And so it's funny, like people ask me like, how do you have time to, let's say, do jiu-jitsu or CrossFit or whatever it is? And I'm like, if I don't do these things, like it's like almost like, how do I not have time for these things? Because they really kind of shape how I'm a leader in business, and how we kind of shape the way we deal with, whether it's our employees or all the way down through our members. And so I feel super grateful that I'm able to kind of get that in and squeeze it in somewhere, whether it's, early in the morning, late at night, or sometime in the middle of the day.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think on the CrossFit and the jiu-jitsu specifically, like they're quite there's obviously the physical nature of it, but there's certainly a mental side of both of those in trying to get through the adversity of a workout. Do you feel like that's like, is that a little bit of a, I guess, a metaphor for business in your mind? Like, because I often.
Yeah, I couldn't agree with you more. And this is something that, I could geek out on for a really long time, because I feel that jiu-jitsu specifically, it was CrossFit in the beginning, and it still is CrossFit, but jiu-jitsu became a much better analogy for me, because CrossFit's the idea of, kind of really doing many different things, many different style movements, and kind of facing, I would say, adversity, right? Whether it's a really heavy weight or whether it's a certain amount of reps that seem impossible, but doing it with a group of people and be able to like kind of come over that adversity and then really get better and have like functional fitness for your life, which is something that had a huge impact on my life. And then like jiu-jitsu kind of took that to the next level for me, because the idea is of being in these uncomfortable positions. And the only way out of these positions is by relaxing, breathing, and using your tools and your technique in order to get your way out, right? And that's where like the strength doesn't even matter, right? Somebody that could be, and you see it all the time, right? Like you'll see it on Instagram, like, some story of, some bodybuilder that walked into a gym and, he's 220 pounds, could squat 500 and deadlift 700. And they walk in there and they just put him up against like 140 pound, 18-year-old kid, and this kid climbs right up on his back and chokes him out, right? And then so kind of like it's the most humbling experience, as well as this experience of knowing that if I'm just like being aggressive or I'm trying to push myself through and I'm not kind of thinking, relaxing, using my tools, using my techniques, I'm never going to win. And it's the idea of just finding a way. And so I have so many of these like analogies where, I was working together with my coach on something, and it kind of like 3-4 hours later in a boardroom had a completely different scenario, but dealing with somebody, whether they were difficult or whether I had to figure or problem solve somehow, some way. And I was able to kind of take those things, what I've learned, and apply them in business. And I think that's been something really, really special for me, and something that I'm really grateful for. And especially going through something like the COVID pandemic, where, there's something so out of your control and seems so impossible to handle. But, I would say my physical activity, like meditation, jujitsu, CrossFit, those things have really helped me get through it, and have really, really helped me kind of shape myself in business.
Yeah, that's great. And meditation as well. That's a really nice, I guess, consistent practice. We often refer to them as those types of things as well-being anchors. So they're the things that anchor you back to, I guess, to the earth or to the ground, and kind of ground you effectively, allowing you to, I guess, think a bit more clearly and perform better. And a big part of, on this podcast is talking about high performance. And you mentioned, obviously, you're the leader of your business. One of the things and I like to talk about in my business as well, is I need to be a high performer if I'm expecting our team to be high performing and growing at, 14 locations every 10 years. And I'm sure you've got more plans for that kind of activity. But it's really that thing of, if you look after yourself, and to enable you to perform better, that's going to have a ripple effect on others as well, within your team. And yeah, it's obviously a really positive way to build a business. Shlomo, with the pandemic, we haven't really addressed that yet, but that's got to be one of the most stressful points in your business time, definitely for me as well, with our type of business. How did you deal with that? I guess, were there any well-being type or self-care type initiatives that you really sort of pulled into your routine to help you get through it? Or was there anything, I don't know, how did you get through it, I guess? Sure.
So obviously the pandemic was something that, was unbelievable, because it's really, it's kind of like that line, right? Is we were, 2018, we raised some money, 2019, as we started our national expansion. And, by the end of 2020, it was supposed to be like that was our year. We were, kind of future tripping on how amazing it was going to be. Coming the end of 2020, what the end of 2020 would look like. And, just so you get an idea, is we opened our Chicago space. We soft launched in February of 2020, our biggest space outside of New York. For our grand opening party was supposed to be in March of 2020. Then we had to open up DC, LA, another Chicago, and it was, and obviously we know how the rest of that story went. And it was something that, it's like that saying, like, what could possibly go wrong? Like, aside from a global pandemic, like, we're totally fine, right? But that's exactly what happened. And so it was really, really, really rough. And it was something that's really hard, because obviously our business was a business that was non-essential business. And, it's everybody had to stay away from the workplace and to keep safe. And so that was something that was really, really scary for us. But I think what really, really got us through it is our team. It was an unbelievable thing to see, where as everybody on our team got together and really just pitched in, saying, whether you were on the design team, on the sales team, on the marketing team, it didn't make a difference. If you, were part of that core team, you just pitched in and helped out with whatever was needed. And we really helped each other get through it. And, it's exactly like we're saying, like, making sure also that, like, no matter what's going on, we're still taking care of ourselves and we're taking care of each other. And, in the beginning of the pandemic, every single day we were on the phone for hours, just, figuring out how to still, manage things, how to run things. It was like on Zooms, just going through everything and kind of reconfiguring our whole company. And I think it made us so much tighter as a team. And it also made us really see, our strengths, where our strength lies, like what we're good at, what we got to get better at, and kind of really take a deep dive into like the core values of the company, who we are as a team, what we're doing, and assess those and kind of grow from there. And I think now coming out of the pandemic, we are just like, a small but mighty force to be reckoned with. And that's something that, obviously I would never, ever wish the pandemic or anything on anyone, but I think thankfully we've learned a lot from it, and it's really made us better as people, as leaders, as as businessmen and business people. So I think that was a really unbelievable experience, and now we're going to see that. We're gonna see the fruits of our labor as we come out of this.
Yeah, I love that. I love hearing that, because it's a question I ask a lot of business leaders, especially as they've gone through it. And it's often that team environment that has really, really helped everyone get through, because it's a community in itself. The business, each business I see is its own community. And the leader's role really is to facilitate that communication and also clarify vision, direction, obviously values as well. And in our business, we've come out much smaller, but more, I guess, quite a high performing small team. And I often use different sporting analogies to kind of get my head around things. But it's often that, that idea of having a lot of team players really makes things work. And sometimes when you're growing across a number of locations as well, sometimes that pause or that stop, whilst we wouldn't wish that to happen ever again, it's kind of a nice way to kind of zoom out and go, what are we really doing, and what are we really about? So yeah, thanks for sharing that.
Yeah, absolutely.
With co-working spaces, and obviously this, you're probably experiencing this resurgence, if you will, in where you are, and obviously with that changing work environment. With like workplaces now, if you kind of picture your business in say 5 or 10 years time, what do you think work looks like for a lot of people, besides, the obviously working from anywhere, but how does co-working fit into this? Or how do you see that working?
Wow, such a great question. I love that question. And I really feel that I've always felt this even before the pandemic. And like I said, especially even more after the pandemic, I think the pandemic just accelerated it. Is I think the idea of, that old office of the past, right, is something that, I just read something recently by Brian Chesky from Airbnb, and he said, if we had to reimagine office in 2022, what would that look like if we had to start from scratch right now? And I think everybody would agree, it's not going to look like some big, old, stodgy office building, right? It's the idea of collaboration. It's the idea of people coming together to a space where it's exactly like you said, where they feel comfortable in that space. They feel that they want to have that, like it has that work energy and that vibe to it. And I think that's really what it's all about. And I think every building or every landlord is going to need to have the offering of some form of, call it shared workspace, call it co-working, call it hybrid work, or just call it a comfortable work environment where people want to work out of. Right. And like everything these days is intentional, right? You have so many different companies from all different styles coming, whether it's like a water company, or whether it's, a certain product, and it's a lifestyle brand, and people are connected to that brand because it's a lifestyle brand. And I think that's the same thing for shared workspaces. You're going to see that landlords, as well as, people are just going to be looking to either have a space where they want to come to, where they can collaborate, where they can be comfortable, and where they want to, meet their clients or get it, whatever it is that they have to get done throughout the day. And that's going to look so different. I think the really cool part is there's going to be so many different offerings, right? I love the fact that, you'll see, I went to one space last week, I was in Seattle, and they had a rock climbing wall, as part of their offering in their space.
That's cool.
You'll see other ones that have like, a fitness center, and other ones that have meditation rooms, and other ones that have, podcasting and media, like studio labs and things along those lines. And I think that's, everybody kind of works different these days. And instead of having that sort of cookie cutter of what it used to be of just there's desks and the chairs and the windows and you're done. And now it's going to be like, oh, I like to work on a couch in collaboration with my 5 or 6 team members. We like to work in one giant team room and have stuff all over on the walls. And the other ones like to work some will still like to work at a desk, And I think having those options that on Monday you could work at a desk, and Tuesday you could work on a couch, and Wednesday you could work outside is something that's going to be a really, really cool offering. And it's going to make work a lot more productive and a lot more fun for people.
Yeah, I love it. Are there any things that you get further to that question, I guess, is there anything that you're seeing or getting requests about in relation to well-being specifically within co-working? You mentioned the meditation rooms and gyms and things like that. Is there has that really climbed up the request ladder, if you will?
Yeah, I think for me, what's super, super interesting and something that we're looking into and something that I think is going to be important is kind of, that health and wellness aspect, but even taking it to more of a, like a holistic level a little bit, right? Whether that's like a guided sort of meditation class, or whether there's just like health and well-being classes on, how to balance, the work-life balance or things like that. Well, somebody's coming in the afternoon and helping you manage your time for taking care of yourselves as well as being productive. And I think that's going to be very interesting. Like if I was to create a space tomorrow and I could have all my resources and do whatever I want, it would be something similar to that, where there's going to be a lot more collaboration space, a lot more big team room space, and less actual office space. And then as well as a lot of like open sort of health and wellness, whether, it's not even like, I'm in my world, I'm not like the gyms of the past, I think are like those big box gyms are kind of like the gyms of the past to me, right? But like having a place where there's like a group fitness class, and then after you could have like a guided meditation, or you could have a guided yoga class, or you could have somebody that's down and talks and deals with, the balance of, the work-life balance and health and wellness. I think that's very, very interesting to me. And that's something that I think we're going to see more of. And that's something that I think people are really looking for. A lot of people during the pandemic had a lot of time to kind of sit down and kind of weigh out, their life and see where they're at. And they know what's important to them. And the things that, kind of like the media type, like things that just like, playing video games and, being stuck on their phone, is everybody knows that they want less of that. And they want more of like good social, human interaction.
Yeah, we're pretty much down 2 years of human connection in real form anyway, not the 3D, not in the 2D form that we're doing now. So yeah, that's quite interesting. You're mentioning health and well-being, and I guess a lot of the work around for those, I guess you might call them big box commercial real estate owners as well. I guess the challenge for them is creating amenities that are appealing to those bigger office groups. So how do they do that? And in Australia at the moment, there's a lot of a big push around wellness centres in property groups, and that's something that we do in our business at Pinnacle Health Group. But it's it's quite interesting because we've been doing this in this space for 13 years, and it's changed a lot, because it used to be 9 to 5 employees coming to the office and then seeing us for wellness centre activity, like your studio, like studio services like yoga, meditation, Pilates, etc. But now what we're overlaying within our business and our offering is we're calling it a high performance club effectively, which is around those types of people that can present on how do you plan out your week appropriately to get the most out of your life, and how do you have optimal energy. So it's kind of combining, as I see it anyways, that intersection between well-being and performance as well, because everyone wants to perform well in work, but they also want to do great things in their personal life, and kind of it's kind of that bringing them together to make a great life.
But I think people are starting to really realize that those things go hand in hand, right? Is like what's really, really cool now to see is a lot of people, it's not anymore so much when you think about someone going to the gym, they're not necessarily going there to just get bigger biceps, but they're going there to push themselves and face a little bit of adversity and get to know themselves a little bit better and see, how they come out on that other side. And that's where that's what I think we need more of. And that's what I think we need to kind of educate the world a little bit more of, that, people think oh, I just got to sit there and focus on my office until I burn out and work. Mm-hmm. And then no, you could, if you learn some good breathing exercises, if you learn to meditate a little bit, if you learn to kind of face adversity and push yourself a little bit, whether it's in the gym or getting certain classes or whatever it is, and kind of learn a little bit more about, what speaks to you and what your needs are, and then learn how to kind of balance that and be really, really productive at work, you'll be working less and being way, way more productive, and also just have a better life. You'll be a happier person. A lot less of that sort of we used to see the kind of the Wall Street of the world, where these people are just work hard, play hard. And I don't think you need that anymore.
Yeah, it's certainly not advertisers the way to go anymore anyway, isn't it? Shlomo, I've got one last question for you, and it's really just about you've obviously you've been through a lot with your business. It's a long journey, and it's a one of high growth in your business, and you're the leader of it. What would be one, if you could, I guess, give yourself some advice maybe 10 years ago, or give some advice to, I guess, an up and coming entrepreneur, what would your well-being, from a well-being perspective, do you have one piece of advice around how people can look after themselves, or well-being in general, how to keep it all together?
I would say just connection. And that, what I mean by that is really connection to yourself. Find a mentor, whether that's a good friend or another business leader that you look up to, or even a therapist or something along those lines, of somebody that could really help, kind of guide you and balance you and help you kind of find out who you really are. And once you know who you really are, kind of hone in on what it is that you want to create and what you're good at, and focus on that. And I think you'll really, be more happier, more fulfilled, and you'll ultimately be way more successful. I feel like, a mistake that I've made to a certain extent, and I've seen, others kind of fail with this also, and then others, and something that I've done well with myself is kind of, you're trying to be a jack of all trades, and you're trying to oh, well, this person did it, and this is what brings success, and this is how I do it. And then you realize oh, we're humans and we're all different. And we all have different skill sets and different things that we do better or worse than one another. And once we've honed in on that and see what really speaks to us and what we're passionate about and what we really want to do, I think it really, really creates for real success. And that's something that I'm super blessed to have kind of found what I love and, how I work now, and kind of have that balance. And I think, it would be helpful for a lot of people to get more connected with that.
Yeah, I love that advice, given that a lot of people think success is, they have their picture of success and then they start working without really understanding themselves first. And yeah, it's just really great advice, Shlomo. Thanks so much for sharing and opening up about your journey today. I've really enjoyed the conversation. And for those that haven't checked out Bond Collective, please have a look. It's an amazing setup and a really beautiful spaces across the US. For co-working. So thanks, Shlomo. Have a great night, and thank you so much for your time.
Awesome. Thanks so much. I'm really feel honored to be here. Really appreciate it.